Well, I've come for a wander around the Watendlath area, so why not wander with me? So you can hear me above the roar of the water. Right, well, as you'll have seen from some of the B-roll that's possibly up now, I've come to today to Watendlath. Excuse me, and as you can see, the road from Ashness Bridge to Watendlath is quite narrow and twisty in places, quite an interesting drive. It's not the sort of place you want to meet too many vehicles coming in the other direction, and I was fortunate that I didn't today. So yeah, so why have we come to Watendlath and what we're going to do? Well, this has been recorded the day after last week's, or the video that was put up last week compared to this, going up to Warnscale Bothy. And while I was up there, I did slip at one point, and I'm just feeling a little stiff and whatever, maybe the sudden reaction of the muscles to that. So I'm just feeling a little stiff, so I thought I'd come somewhere relatively close to home, somewhere relatively on the level. So that was one reason. The other reason for coming close to home is I want to get this video up and done so I can get it uploaded before I go to Iceland, although it will actually go live on the day after I come back. But I don't want to be worrying while I'm in Iceland about videos. So I'm a little pressed for time. I could really do to be working today, but never mind. I might, depending on what time I get back home, do a bit of work then. So yeah, that's one reason for staying relatively close to home. So yeah, we're just going to have a wander around. Might try and walk up to, I think it's Tarn, see what we can see up there, whether there's any images. But I did want to talk about, and I did announce it, did mention it on last week's video, did want to talk about sort of the management of camera settings. So that's something I'll talk about as we get to getting some images, etc. So yeah, and I want to thank everybody. I have mentioned, I've been going on a bit about the number of subscribers and how great it will be to get to 5,000. It's not 5,000, 500. That would be brilliant, and it would be nice if I could do it by the end of the month. And if I have done it, yeah, it'll be done before this video goes live. But as we stand at the moment, and this has been recorded on the 19th, so we've got 10 more days, and we're up to 491. So that would be brilliant if we could hit that 500 barrier by the end of the month. So anyway, I'll keep you up to date with in future videos. But a great thanks to everybody who has subscribed, clicked on the thumbs up. It all does help the channel. And if you think this is a useful channel, please subscribe, please click the thumbs up, and please comment. It all helps in the algorithm, etc. So anyway, I'll stop rambling and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well, we've come to a little, whether you'd call it a cascade or just a small waterfall here on, I'm not quite sure whether this stream's got a name, but I thought it was quite nice. So I've come just off the path. If we zoom back out there, we can see there's the camera and there's the waterfall. And as you can see, I've got the long lens on, the 70 to 200, and we're probably about 90, somewhere between 80 and 90 mils. So, but what I will do is I'll just put up the back of the video of the back of the screen, and yeah, you'll see that we did 100 ISO, which is my standard setting unless I need to up it for any reason, f11, which is fairly standard, and half a second, as you can see along the bottom. At the very bottom left corner you can see a thing which says, that's indicating I can touch the screen to activate the shutter. In the middle you can see it says one, on the middle left you can see it says 1 shot, and underneath there's a symbol there. Now that's saying I've got a 2-second delay, and up in the top left there's an M which indicates that it's in manual. Now that's, as a landscape photographer, that's my normal settings when I'm on a tripod. So we're on a manual setting, so I can set the shutter speed, the ISO, etc., whatever I want. And then I have a 2-second delay, and I normally activate the shutter by touching the back of the screen when I'm in live view, which gives us a 2-second delay for any shaking to calm down, and then the image is taken. The other thing I have, which if I do it with the shutter, I have mirror lockup, which means if I was to activate it with pressing the shutter when I'm not in live view, pressing the shutter would lock up the mirror, and then there'll be 2 seconds for the camera to settle down, and then the shutter would be activated. Did I say lock up the shutter? I mean lock up the mirror, lock up the mirror out of the way, because obviously that could cause vibration. So we'll lock up the mirror, give the camera time to settle, and then do it. So that's my normal settings that I have for on the camera. What I do try and teach myself, and I'm not very good at it, if I've knocked anything out of the normal, so say for instance I've upped the ISO for whatever reason, before I put the camera in the bag, to put it back down to the 100 as normal, which I don't always do, because I've known to take the camera out of the bag and wonder, why am I getting such a fast shutter speed? And then I suddenly realised that last time I was out, I was maybe doing astro, so I've got a very high ISO, and I forgot to put it back down. The other thing I have when I'm on the tripod, any lenses that have I can think Nikon call it vibration reduction, being a Canon it's called stabilizer. I always have that turned off, and I do try and remember whenever I have it handheld or whatever, when I've got the stabilization turned on, to turn it straight off when the camera goes back in the bag, and that way it will be off. So when I put it on the tripod, because it can try and stabilize when it's on the tripod and actually cause movement, which I have noticed before at times. So that's the sort of standard settings I have on the camera, and now that's in manual mode. The other mode I may use on the tripod for long exposures is putting it into bulb mode, because in manual the longest shutter speed I can go for is half a second, and if I want to go longer I go into bulb mode. Now if you're in bulb mode and you actuate the shutter by touching the back of the screen, a counter comes up on the screen and counts how long the shutter's been open, so you can watch that and then just tap the screen when you've got to the appropriate thing. I do have, I'll maybe talk about it some other time when I've played around with it more, I do have something I can attach to the camera to control it from the phone, and then I can actually dial in the actual shutter speed, and that when in bulb mode. So those are the modes I use when I'm on a tripod, and all those modes the manual and the bulb remembers where you were last at. So whenever you get the camera out, put it on, it will remember the ISO will be what it was before, the shutter speed will be what it is before. It doesn't default back to anything. And that's where the custom settings can come in. But we'll talk about those a little bit later. Anyway, we'll carry on, we'll put up this image on the video and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well, we've made it to Tarn, and I was hoping there might be a bit more light. I mean, to make a note to self, only come here when it's not windy and there's quite a good light. I remember last time I came, I can't remember when it was, the light was very poor. So yeah, so what I've done, I mean, I've come all this way, so I might as well take a picture. I've just come to this headland here and I've taken an image looking out, but I've just done it handheld. Now if I'm going to do it handheld, what do I need to change from my tripod settings? Well, I still want to control the ISO, the shutter speed, the aperture, etc. So I don't need to change much, but I don't want mirror lockup and I don't want a 2-second delay. The number of times I've picked up the camera, taken the camera out, pressed the shutter, and then you hear the mirror lock up, and then there's a delay, and you think, ah, and you can't, once the mirror's locked up, you can't see where you're looking at. So, yeah. So what's a way around that? Well, this is where custom settings come in. Now, I'm fortunate that my Canon 5D Mark IV has 3 custom settings. And custom setting 1, I have set to more or less the same as, it's all manual, everything else pretty much the same as would be on a tripod, but I've disabled the mirror lockup and there is no delay, which means as soon as you click the shutter, the image is taken. So all I've got to remember is I'm doing a handheld shot, put it to C1, and all your settings are fine. Obviously you need to adjust shutter speed, focus, turn on the stabilizer if you want the stabilizer, etc. But you don't need to remember anything else. It just makes it so much easier. I mean, I'm not going into how I set it because you've all got different cameras and the different cameras will all be different of how you set the custom settings, but it is so much easier doing it with custom settings than having to think, oh right, I need to change that, where was this, where do I go to change that setting? Because sometimes there's so many settings in the menus, you get confused and you get lost to where you are. So yeah, so that's what I do. The one thing about custom settings on the Canon is whenever you turn to them, they go to their default, and the default I've got is 100 ISO f11 a 50th of a second. So that is what I will get when I go into C1, and obviously I can adjust from there onwards. It can be a bit annoying because if the camera sort of goes to sleep when you're doing it and then you wake it up, it will go back to those defaults. So if you've changed anything, you've got to change it back again. So that is just the one annoying thing. So that's the advantage of custom settings. We'll talk about a bit more as we move on. So yeah, we'll see you a bit later, and we'll put that image up of the Tarn, although it's not brilliant because we haven't got brilliant light, and it's a fairly, as you can see looking round, it's a fairly dull looking place today. Right, we'll see you a bit later. Right, well I've just stopped and taken another handheld image similar to what you can see in on the screen now. We'll put it up after this. Just to remind people, if you're enjoying the video, please kick the thumbs up, and if you like what I'm doing, why not subscribe? It does great things for the algorithm to get it to other people. If you think other people will enjoy it, please do that. And the other thing would be to watch it all the way through to the end. But yeah, we'll put this image up and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well we're now back at Watendlath, and I've just come at this composition of the bridge and the river running down. I think it's quite a nice one, and as you can see I'm showing it in the stills camera as well. Obviously we've got the bridge there, and we can see there's the bit of green under that, and then there's these, I suppose you'd call them cascades, but they do look quite good, particularly at a long shutter speed. So I've done, I think, 1/8 of a second, and then a full second. The slight problem I had was, you can see here, it's very bright at the top, so getting a suitable shutter speed and combination so that doesn't get blown out. I mean, it was at f11 on a second with a circular polarizer and a 3-stop ND filter, which I then upped. I think is it f13, the next step up, which then, yeah, I think that'll be the one that we'll do. I did a slightly up the aperture once again. We'll see which one's best, and whichever one's best we'll put up on the video after this. But just coming back to managing settings, I did mention that I've got 3 customized settings on this camera. We've mentioned what C1 was. Now C2 is for video basically. So when we turn to C2, it is in shutter priority. So it will choose the aperture and it will choose the ISO, although I've set a maximum on that. And the shutter speed is set to a 50th of a second. And that's what I use when I'm filming through the camera or videoing through the camera, because I'm doing it at 24 frames per second and want that cinematic look. So normally you have your shutter speed twice the frames. So 24 frames doubles 48, the nearest is a 50th of a second. So yeah, that's why that's what I've got C2 set to. So right, we'll put this image up on the video after this, and then we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well, we're back at Watendlath, and obviously I've been talking through this video about managing your settings, managing camera settings, and I mentioned that I have 3 customized settings on my camera. Obviously cameras vary, some only have 1, some may have more. And I've mentioned that most of the time on the tripod I'm just in manual mode. I have C1, which is a sort of manual mode, other settings that I used for handheld. C2 we've just mentioned about using when I do video on the camera, and then the final one is C3, which I rarely use. Now the idea of that one is, at the moment it's set at its aperture priority, and I can't remember what aperture it's set at. It's probably set with auto ISO up to a maximum, and trying to keep a minimum shutter speed of 500th of a second. Now occasionally I do alter that. Now the last time I was using that settings was when I was in Skye trying to capture the images of the sea eagle. So it's great for street photography. If you're just going around and you're doing street photography, you've got the aperture priority and it'll just set the shutter speed for you. For street photography you'd probably have a lower minimum, maybe 100th of a second. But when you're doing wildlife and it's seagulls and you're trying to pan and capture their image, a 500th of a second is probably a minimum that you're trying to do. And that's what C3 is, so that's all of them. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you haven't already, please click the thumbs up. If you aren't a subscriber, considering subscribing, it'd be very useful. and please do comment. Comments are greatly appreciated, and all comments are replied to. So the next few videos will be from Iceland. When this video goes up, I'll actually just have got back from Iceland, but I'll have been recording while I was out there and taking pictures. So yeah, so as I say, after this and that, and then after we put up the Iceland ones, we'll be thinking about doing some challenges on our when I'm getting out. So alright, yeah, I think that covers everything. I'll stop rambling on, and we'll see you on the next video.